All right. So we are finishing up with the last two letters of the Aleph Bait. Okay. So it's hard to believe we've gone through almost all of it. Just the last two letters we're working on now. So what we're going to do today is we're going to work on the last two letters, and we're going to work on U-type vowels, and we're also going to work on our special friend, the shva. So we're going to talk about the different cases for the shva. How do we know whether it's vocal, non-vocal? So that's what we're going to do, okay? So anyway, let's get started with our first letter today. So our first letter is the letter Shin, okay? So number 21, so number Shin. All right, it has a sound like a SH, so sh. All right, now sometimes you'll see it and it will sound like an S, okay? And I'm going to show you how you know whether to sound it like SH or an S, okay? But it has a numerical value of 300, okay? So the proto-Sinaitic form was kind of this W shape here. Looks like a rake flipped over. Don't step on that. Get the stick in the face. But anyway, so it looked like this, and then it came to this W shape, and then that translated over into this shape here. Now, if you notice on the two classical forms that we are used to seeing, we have one that has a dot or a circle over the left-hand side, and we have one that has it over the right-hand side. So what we need to remember is that if we see it with the dot over the left-hand side, see what I'm talking about, Brother Matt? All right, so if we see it with the dot over the left-hand side, it's going to make a sound like S. Okay? S. And if you see it over the right-hand side, it's going to make a sound like SH. Not in Paleo, no. But they found that later on it was necessary to do that because of dialects. It's kind of like you remember when Judah was guarding the bridge and there were some Ephraimites that were trying to get across the bridge, and they were trying to figure out, hey, where are you from? This was during the wars, right? And Judah was holding this bridge. So these people wanted to come across. So they told him, say this word, Shibboleth. They wrote it out, told him, say this word. So the Ephraimites didn't pronounce it the same. They pronounced it as Sibboleth. Well, that's how they knew. And then they killed them because they weren't, you're the enemy. Okay. So anyway, that was how they know. So sometimes it will sound like an S. Sometimes it will sound like SH. But you're right. There was no differentiation in the earlier times. Okay. But because of dialects, you have either an S or an SH sound. It's just like the word Shabbat. Okay. Now, if you pronounce it with a Sephardic pronunciation, it's Shabbat. But if you use an Ashkenazi pronunciation, it's Shabbos. Okay. OS instead of AT at the end. Spelled the same, okay, but it's pronounced because of the dialects. It's pronounced a different way. So that's why there's a need to point it at the top. And another thing to remember is if you ever see this with the dot over the right-hand side, there are no vowel points that have a dot over the right-hand side. So you know, well, it's not a vowel point. That's a pronunciation marker. So since it's not a vowel point, anytime you see this letter, and if you see a dot over the side of it, and it could be carrying other vowel points. And if it is, that's fine. But that's trying to tell you, okay, this is how you pronounce it, like an S or an SH. And Kim's right. Sometimes you'll have like a whole moi, right? So you'll have a dot over this side and a dot over that side. Or you'll have two dots on this side. Well, it's one of them to let you know how to pronounce the letter. The other is to let you know what kind of vowel pointing it has. Okay? So, like I said, dot over the left sounds like an S. Dot over the right sounds like SH. And it's when it sounds like SH, it's pronounced shin. And when it sounds like S, it's pronounced sin. Okay? Sin or shin. So, prefixes and suffixes. There are none. Not for sin or shin. Okay? No prefixes, no suffixes. So, on the top level, what does it speak of? Yo, what you got, sis? Oh, script form. Yeah. Here you go. You ready? It's like a lowercase e. Sure. Thank you for reminding me. So anyway, on the top level, it's teeth. Okay? It's a pair of teeth. If you look like it look like a buck teeth from like a donkey or something. Okay? If you see it with these points, it kind of reminds us of the teeth of like a snake. Okay? But what it talks about is growth. On the top level, it speaks of wisdom. Because, you ever heard the phrase, somebody is long in the tooth? What does that mean? It means that they're old. Not that they talk too much. A person who is long in the tooth is old. And sometimes, the way it's supposed to be, the older you grow, the more wise you're supposed to become. That doesn't always happen, but that is the idea. Okay? So we see that these are some long teeth. So when it all comes down to it, it's really talking about wisdom, right? It's talking about wisdom. It's talking about knowledge. It's talking about gaining, growth, whether that growth is physical or spiritual, okay? But the letter shin speaks to us of growth. Now, conversely, all right, when you have this set of teeth and they latch onto something, what are they doing? They're tearing it, right? They're like a lion's fangs, okay? A lion grabs a zebra and he's going to tear into it, okay? So it can mean to tear. It can mean to consume. It can mean to destroy, okay? It can mean to deceive. Part of why it looks like a snake's fangs. Because the snake in the garden did what? Deceived Adam v'Chava, right? Adam and Eve. He deceived them. He told them some lies. And another thing about this too is when you talk about a snake, the word for a snake, right? The word for a snake and the word for a sorcerer or a magician is almost the exact same word, because it comes from the fact that the snake hisses and the magician whispers his secret magic words. And he deceives people. Same way that the snake did, right? So that's why you have these pictures here. That's why you have this, okay? So again, we like to think of wisdom and knowledge on the positive side, but we have to remind ourselves too that the opposite of wisdom and knowledge, is foolishness, deception, guile, lies, and those things are all present. So we have to use wisdom, right, to see through that. Yes, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. I didn't know what you was doing. I thought you were throwing a field goal over there or something. I don't know what you was doing. All right. So we have to use wisdom to see through the deceit, right, and the falsehood. All right. And how do we gain wisdom? Through growth, right? Remember we talked about gift versus growth. There are people in this world that are sitting right next to each other at the same congregation. They may be sitting side by side of each other. And they're both saved. Yet one person's gift or one person's growth is more than the other person. Okay? Does that mean that this person is any better than this person? No. It just means that they're in a different, sit over there, Bella. It just means that they're in a different place. That's all. Okay? It just means that they're in a different place in their walk. Okay? But especially with a walk like this, you have what's called progressive revelation. The longer you walk it, the more you'll see. And it's just like with the Parsha. Okay? Every year we read through the entire Torah. Every year. And then we start all over again. But every time we start over, we see something new. And we should. If we're growing, we should, right? We should see something new. We have to remember, though, that especially with something new, that it has got to follow the pattern of the scripture. So if we see something in there new and then we run off on a tangent, oh man, blah, 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 blah. If it doesn't match the pattern, then don't go with that. You know what I'm saying? Follow the pattern in the word. Let the word interpret itself. Follow the pattern. Follow the pictures, right? That will put you on the pathway. So what we do is, like I said, we look at, and that's part of growing. It's not always fun. Sometimes growth is difficult, right? Sometimes it hurts. Yeah, exactly. Yes, ma'am. You could have just handed it, Brother Matt. He said it right there.
Also, the more that we walk this, the narrower the way becomes.
Yeah, that's right. The pathway becomes a little tighter.
Right. It comes
every time you walk it.
We're expected more of us.
The longer you walk it, the tighter it gets. Right? And what did the brother say? He said, by this time, y'all should be on the meat of the word, but you're still babes. You still need the milk. But like I said, as we walk it, as we live it, as it grows and as we grow, you'll see that it'll get tighter, but you'll also notice that you're walking a little taller and that your understanding's better. So again, that is the letter Shin. Okay. Any questions about this letter? Any observations? Okay. All right. So let me roll on down to the last letter. Can y'all see that, or do I need to bring it up some more? All right, so we have the letter Tav, right? Now, you'll notice that it has two different T's here. You have a T and a TH. That's because back in the day, this had a TH sound attached to it, right? This is the last of the Beged Kafat letters. Now, in modern pronunciation, there is no TH attached to it, okay? So, no, we were just on Sheen. All right. So, again, it has a T sound and it had a TH sound. All right. Now, kind of the softer TH that you would hear in the word with. Okay. That was, what is it, sis? What are you huffing about? Let me move it up. For sake of argument, let's just move it up. All right. So it has a numerical value of 400, right? Now that's how they go, from 1 to 400. Now there are some that teach that the Beged Kafat letters in order, or not the Beged Kafat, I'm sorry, that the Sophite letters in order pick up 500, 600, 700, 800, 900. Okay? So Kaf, being the first Sophite letter, would be 500, right? Nun would be 600, so on and so forth. Okay? So in the first form, it was like an upright cross. All right? Now, well, again, from the Aleph to the Tav, the beginning to the end, okay? And then in the Paleo, it changed to an X type shape. Now, that's what they call, people in Scotland know what that's called. Right? That's St. Andrew's cross, right? Same thing, but it's just an X, okay? Because that was supposedly how St. Andrew was martyred. There was a bunch of them that died that way, but sideways, all kinds of stuff. That's St. Peter's. St. Peter's cross is upside down because he didn't, according to Fox's Book of Martyrs, he didn't feel worthy to be sacrificed in the same way that the son was. So he told him to put him upside down. Yes. This one here, St. Andrew. Okay. I don't know. No. I'm just saying that there was, I mean, there's people that have been martyred throughout the years. Yeah, I don't know about if this was the Andrew. I don't know. I'm just saying that's what it's called. Okay. That's something you could look up. I just don't know off the top of my head. And then, of course, we have this form that we're all familiar with. It's kind of like the He or the Het, but it has a little foot sticking off the front of it. So when you see that shape, look immediately at the foot. Look at the top and look at the foot, because there's three letters here that look almost exactly the same, right? He, Het, and Tav. So you got to know what to look for. Got a bunch of look-alike letters in here. Okay? So what is the symbol here? What is it? It symbolizes two cross sticks. Right? It symbolizes the end of something. It's at the end of the Aleph Beit, right? It's the end. So it symbolizes the end of something. It symbolizes finishing. Like Shaul said, I have finished my course, right? It also symbolizes a covenant between two people. Now, you remember in the old, you watch some old, y'all ever watch the old Western TV shows back when you were a kid? You ever watch those things? They'd bring a guy a contract and say, here, sign this contract. Put your X on this contract. He didn't know how to read or write. But in legally, if a person puts a letter X, that is the only symbol, shall we say, that is an actual legal, legitimate, considered a legal, legitimate signature for a legal document. Okay, so that's that's the sign of making a covenant with somebody, is making that X. Okay, so that's what it symbolizes. So when we talk about a covenant, we talk about finishing something. All right. When we get right, what does the scripture tell us? He who endures to the end shall be saved, right? So it's a good thing. Because eventually, think about it, y'all. Eventually, there's going to be an end for all of us, right? Eventually, one day. But we have to make sure that we're still in the race when we reach that finish line, or still in to reach the finish line, you know? Because look at the negative side of it. Unfinished business. Not finishing your course. Not making it to the end, right? Waning, fading, becoming weary. The scriptures say, be not weary in well-doing, right? So the Tav, like I said, shows us an end. One that's waiting for all of us. But it's up to us to decide on which side of that covenant are we going to fall. Are we going to fall on the failure side, the negative side, or are we going to fall on the positive side? We're going to finish the race, or are we not going to finish it? Honestly, I don't think we have but two choices here. You either do or you don't. Do or do not. There is no try. You know what I'm saying? That's it. All right. So that's the letter Tav. So when we see words like we do with our paleo, we've seen how these meanings kind of coalesce into giving us an idea of a particular word. So these, they are important. They are important, and it's good to know what the letters symbolize and stuff. It gives us a little bit more insight into the word. So let's move on. Anything on Tav? Script. All right. Script, you've got kind of a hook shape here, and then you've got a little step thing in the front. Looks kind of like a wishbone. Still got that little leg sticking out. All right, still got that little leg sticking out. So prefixes and suffixes, it's not necessarily a prefix such as it is a tense, okay? So in biblical Hebrew, the Tav meant, okay, where the Yud means he will, and the Aleph means I will, the Tav symbolized she will. Okay. However, the feminine aspect has been removed in today's usage, and it's kind of it now. Okay. For whatever reason, I don't know. But it's kind of like more like it will instead of being she will. But let's just like, okay, so the word for brother is ahi, but the word for sister is achot or achoti. But you see it has that tav in it. See what I'm saying? Achoti, my sister. Okay? Achot, sister. Achoti, my sister. Right? But that tav at the end is what tells us that it's a feminine word. But again, like I said, it doesn't, in modern understanding, it doesn't have that feminine aspect that it did in biblical Hebrew. Okay? Again, y'all know me. I'm going to tell you why they changed it. I don't know. There's any number of reasons. All I'm concerned with really is I'm not really concerned with the politics behind why they do things. Oh, but anyway, so that's the Tav, okay? All right, so if we have no questions on that, we are going to roll that up a little bit, and then we're going to work on the U-type vowels. There's only 2 of them, so that's a good thing. So you have 2 different U-type vowels. All right. One is this. See how we have this wall with this dot inside of it? That is shuruk. Right? That's a long duration vowel point. So we hold it a long time. And then we have this falling progression of 3 dots. Okay? That's kubutz. right? And that is a short duration U type vowel. Okay. So you do have long and you have short. Okay. So we have shuruk. Say it with me. Shuruk. Shuruk. And we have kibbutz. See? Long, shuruk, and short, kibbutz. See how, do you understand what I'm trying to tell you? That's the difference. When I tell you that they say their names, they also tell you how long to hold them. Right? Kibbutz, shuruk and kibbutz. Long, short. All right. So let's take a look at some of these words and we'll see how the letters are being used. Okay. Do you have one of the new papers, sister, or one of the old? Okay, use the new one because I made some changes on this. Again, I've gone back, looked over, seen where there, from the original one I made 12 years ago, I've seen where there were some errors. So, I have changed those, okay? So, let's take a look at this first word. So, what is this letter here? It is sheen, right? Because the dot is on the right-hand side. So, how do we pronounce that? Right, SH, because the dot is on the right-hand side. Then it has this kametz underneath it. So what sound is that? Ah. So how do we sound out this first syllable? Sha. Now we have aleph. What kind of letter is that? Silent letter, right? But look what it's followed by. A wa pointed shuruk. And then it's finished by what? Lamed. So lamed is closing the syllable, right? So how do we pronounce this part of the word then? Ul. Shaul. Shaul. King Saul. All right. Or the apostle Paul. Right? Paul's name is Shaul. Okay. King Saul. His name is Shaul. All right. So Shaul, like I said, either King Saul or the Apostle Paul, same word. Okay? Shaul. All right, so what about this next word? What's our first letter we have here? So if you don't see any feet, it's not a tav, right? So what is it? Go back about 3 weeks on your papers. Look at the number 8. So it'll be in week 2. What's the number 8? Het. That's the letter het. All right. And it's pointed how? Kibbutz. So how do we sound that syllable right there? Hu. Hu. You what? Right. Hu. Now, what letter do we have here? This one looks like a letter P. What is that? That's a kuf, right? So when did we cover kuf? Last week, right? Kuf. So kuf is what? Or a K type sound. All right. So we have this Q sound here, but look, it has a dot inside and it's got a dot, or it's got a kametz underneath it. So what is the dot telling us to do? If this is not a beged kafat letter, which it is not, it is telling us to double it. So the first, if we drew an imaginary line through here, and we put a Q on one side and a Q on the other. So that means we would take this hu and then stick a Q on the end of it. So how do we pronounce that? Hook. Hook. Then we would pick up a second Q, and this Kametz Yud Wa. So what sound does Kametz Yud Wa make? Av. So we'd have a Q sound and then Av. So how would we pronounce that? Kav. So we have Hukav. Hukav. So what does that mean? A huk is a statute, right? That's a rule or a mandate that the father makes, that he's basically saying, I don't care whether you understand it or not. You do it because I told you to. Okay? It just means do it. It's CHUQ QAV. Hukav. It's a statute. It's a mandate. Okay? It's an ordinance. Like I said, the father says, the father says, do this. Do we have the ability to say, no, I'm not going to do that? Sure we do. We have free will. All right. But if he said, do this thing, and we said, why? Does he have to answer us? No. Because I'm the daddy and I said so, and that's why you're going to do it. It is a statute or an ordinance. A lot of times it's translated as ordinance, okay? So this of at the end, what does that tell us? That is a diphthong, and it tells us something very special. What is it? The of sound at the end. His, so hukav, his statute, his ordinance. Okay? Let's move on to our next word here. We have a wa pointed shuruk, so that gives us what sound? U. Then we have the letter bait, no dot inside, right? So it's going to be a vait, but it's pointed how? Sere yod, so long duration E type vowel with nun sofit, right? See how he's hanging down below the line? So that's a nun sofit. So how do we pronounce this word? Uvain. Uvain. Let me see. You could say double O apostrophe V-E-Y-N. Uvain. Okay. So what does uvain mean? The word bin, which is the root here, means between. So uvain and between. O-O apostrophe V-E-Y-N. Uvain. All right. So what about the next word? We have a yud pointed. This is a vocal shava because we're at the beginning word. So yeah. Then we have a hey followed by a wa pointed cholem. So how do we pronounce that? Ho. Yeho. Then we have a sheen, right? Because the mark's over the right-hand side. And it's pointed how? Kubutz. Shu. Then we have ayin, silent letter, but it's pointed how? Patach, short duration A type vowel. Ah. Yehoshua. Yehoshua. Which is who? Joshua. Yehoshua. So you see, you hear the ooh sounds? Yeah. Ooh is a good word. That's a good sound. Ooh. Any questions on what we've studied so far? Because we're going to roll off of letters and vowel points, and we're going to talk about the vocal and the silent shava now. So are we good with what we've learned so far? Okay. So I'm going to move this up and we're going to talk about vocal and silent shva. So shva is these two dots, one right on top of the other, right? Looks like the punctuation mark we call a colon, right? I know that. I got it. I want to handle this first, and then I'm going to move on to the, because I wouldn't get the top part. The screen's only that high. I can't hardly raise my arm. All right, so we have this mark here, and this is what we call the shva. Now, it can come in one of two flavors, vanilla or chocolate. It can come in one of two flavors, either vocal or silent, right? But there are rules to know whether it's vocal or silent. There are typically 4 rules for each one. But what's funny is the rules actually mirror each other, so you'll know. So let's take rule number 1. Or let's see, what does it do? So the vocal shva represents the sound of a letter without a vowel. So you'll have a consonant with a shva underneath it, 2 dots underneath it, okay? When it opens a syllable and it gives the consonant that it's attached to a very short, quick E sound. So, right? And the silent shva has no sound, and it's usually used to close a syllable. Okay? So, for example, I have several examples here of vocal and silent shvas. So let's cover those, okay? So what's the first rule of a vocal shva? How do we know that it's a vocal shva? What's rule number 1? When it begins a word. So in this case, we have a bait, which has a vocal shva underneath it. And it's because we're beginning a word, right? So then we have a bait with a vocal shva, so be. Then we have a resh with kamatz, ra. Then we have chaf, pointed kamatz, hey, cha. So beracha, beracha, which means what? All right, to bless. Beracha, to bless. Comes from the word baruch. Right? Beracha. So this is a vocal shva because we're beginning a word with it. Now, it doesn't have to be the first word in a sentence. It can be anywhere in a sentence. As long as it's under the first letter of the word, it's going to be vocal. Okay? So the second rule of vocal shva, when it is the second of 2 in a row. So here we have a mem pointed kirik, but then we have a shin with a shva, and we have a pei with shava. So we have 2 of them, right? So this is the first one because we work from right to left. So this is the first of 2. This is the second of 2. So the one underneath this pei is what kind? This is a vocal shva, right? Because you see over here that the first of 2 in a row is a silent one. So how would we pronounce this? M, ish, pe, te, mishpete, mishpete. All right, mishpete, mishpete. It means from my lips, from my mouth, mishpete. From mouth of me. From, right? From mouth of me, my, from my mouth. Okay? Mishpate. And the word mishpat means what? The judgment. Where do judgments come from? You speak them. So the idea is that it's something that comes from your mouth. Okay? Mishpate. Mishpete. All right. So number 3 is when it's under a dagesh forte later. Now I noticed something here. This is the wrong letter. This should be a cuff. Okay. The 4th one from the right. The one that looks like a nun, it should be a cuff. Okay. So everybody make that change on your paper there. All right. So when it's under a dagesh forte letter. So what is dagesh forte? We really haven't covered that yet. But it's a dot that doubles a letter. Okay. So here we have a hey, and it's got patah, quick a. So we have ha. Then we have this mem, and it's got a dot inside. So we know that dot is dagesh, right? But what kind of dagesh is it? Dagesh forte. It's the one that doubles it. It strengthens the letter. That's what the word forte means. It means strong, right? Fortified. So we're going to split this M. It'll be M on this side, M on this side. So this goes from being ha to being hum. Then we pick up the second mem and the quick E sound now. Meh. Because we can't just have an M flying out there all by itself, right? We got to have a vowel attached to it to be able to pronounce it. So hammeh. Then we have a lamed here, la. Then we have a kaf pointed kirik yod with mem so feet. Im, kim, ha melakim. All right, ha melakim. So what does that mean? Melak. The angels. Remember, Malka, queen. Melek, king. Malak, angel. The funny thing about malak is it also means salt. So again, you got to have context, right? You got to have context. But hamalakim, right? So that's the angels here. Okay. And then the 4th time is when it follows a long duration vowel point. So what's this first letter we have here? It's kaf. And how is it pointed? Holem. So holem is what type of vowel? A long duration vowel point. So how do we pronounce that syllable? Ko. Ko. C-O. Ko. Or K-O if you want. Then we have a tav here, and it's got a shva underneath it. So since we're following a long duration vowel point, that makes it what kind of shva? It's vocal. So that is now going to be pronounced how? Ko-te. Kote. All right, then we have a veit here. Kirik yod v'im. Mem sofit. So the word is what? Kotevim. Kotevim. All right? Kotevim. So the word ketuv means to write or to inscribe. So what is kotevim? If we know that ketuv means to write or to scribe, kotevim, writings. Okay? That's what they call the section of the scriptures that has the Psalms and the Proverbs and Ecclesiastes and all the Song of Solomon, all that. That's called the ketuvim. All right, the writings. Okay, what? Again, I think that a lot of that has to do with dialects. Dialects really come in a lot. You know what I mean? It's just like here in the States. We've got like 11 different dialects, possibly more, but just 11 off the top of my head. We've got here in the States. All right. We had a teacher that was from Boston back in high school, and you couldn't hardly understand that guy. We were in Southern California. He was from Boston. You couldn't hardly understand that guy. But now, I have a cousin that I love her to death. She lives in Massachusetts right now. But when she was younger, and she was living in California, and we would talk on the phone, she would laugh every time. And I'd be like, "What are you laughing at?" And she would tell me, she said, "You sound like Huckleberry Hound." Well, you got to think about where my mama's side of the family comes from. They come from up in the Delta. When I was coming up, seriously, this is no joke. When I was coming up, we lived about 2 hours north of the Mexican border, okay? But we grew up with black eyed peas, cornbread, cabbage. We grew up saying y'all and ain't. And we had a lot of superstitions that you see down here. We had that in California. And my friends were like, "What is this? I've never seen this before in my life." I had friends that would come over to my house. I kid you not, my grandmother would make chicken and dumplings. She would make chicken fried steak. She would make New Year's Day, you better believe we was having black eyed peas and cabbage and all, I was so mad with her the first year we were married. I'm like, "Where is my black eyed peas?" New Year's Day, she's like, "What are you talking about?" Her folks come from the Midwest. So they didn't know. But we don't do that anymore, of course. But what I'm saying is, I grew up with things that my friends didn't understand, but to me, they seemed completely normal. You know what I'm saying? We had all kinds of sayings. I'm nervous as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. They'd be like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Are y'all stupid?" But I mean, that's the thing, It's all. And like I said, I hadn't even made it here yet. You know what I mean? I was doomed from the beginning, y'all. When I got here, I was like, "Okay, now I can feel at home." But so anyway, a lot of that is because of dialects. A lot of it is. So that's how we know that it's a vocal shva. Any of these cases here will make that a vocal shva. On the other hand, when we have a shva that ends a word, that's going to be a silent shva. What's our first word here? We've got the letter mem, and it's pointed segol, meh, lamed, segol, le. Then chaf sofit with silent shva. Ch, melech, melech, right? King. Can mean to rule as well, but normally when you see the word melech, it's talking about king. Okay? So, when it ends a word, all right? So, as we spoke of right here, when it's the second of two, it's vocal, but when it's the first of two in a row, silent. Now, I use the same word here because why use two different words? You know what I'm saying? We see here where we stopped under the sheen, and then we had a vocal one under this peh. So the first one in a set of two is always silent. So when it closes a syllable, okay? When it closes a syllable. So we have what letter? We have the letter mem, pointed how? Betach, short duration A, ma. Then we have this lamed, and it's just kind of hanging out there all by itself. So we got a shava here that's following a short duration vowel point. That's rule number 4. So when it follows a short vowel point, what kind of shva is it? According to our chart, it's silent, yeah? So we pronounce this mal, and we cut the sentence off. Mal. Then we have a kaf, and it's pointed kamathe, ka. So the word is malka, which means a queen. Okay, malka. All right, so we have melech, a king, malka, a queen, and then mishpateh, from my mouth, from my lips. Yeah, yeah. It's the same word. All right. So closing syllable, and then when following a short vowel. So we have the letter pay, and it's pointed with patak, short duration A. We have a resh, and it's pointed with a silent shva. So what sound is that? Par, right? Pa, par, par, like a cat, like a pirate. Now we have the letter ayin, silent letter, right? And how is it pointed? With a cholem and a hey after it. Oh, paro. Who is paro? Not Hercule Poirot. Yeah, no, Paro. All right, Pharaoh. It is not Yulbrenner. No, he was a good one. So anyway, that's the rules for shva. Okay, shva can trip you up, knowing whether it's vocal or whether it's silent. But if you keep in mind those 4 rules, and the more you study and the more you practice, right, the more we do these things, the sooner it will come to you. All right. And like I said, it's difficult. This is not our native language, and it's certainly not an easy language. You know, it isn't. It's not an easy language. But the thing is, we can learn it, and we can pick it up. And it may look like we're on an uphill climb, brother, and I promise you we are for a little bit. But there's going to be times where you're going to find some cutout places. You'll be like, oh, wait a minute. And it will begin to coalesce into something that you can get a handle on. All right? And I'm not expecting anybody to become fluent from these lessons that we do.
So you think if you went to Israel, you could?
No. No.
I think you could.
No, I don't. I can, yeah, there's a difference in understanding it, you know, and being able to hold a conversation. I could read it, and I could do that, but I don't think conversationally I'd be able to do it. You know what I mean? But if you, yeah, okay, I'll give you that. Leave me alone for about a month and a half, and I'll surprise you. I'll be running for prime minister. I'll be like, get out of here, Ben. Let me get in here. You know, but no, the point is, like I said, as we progress and as we work together and as we do these little exercises and stuff, we become more familiar with it. My name wouldn't change. It's Yochanan. My name is Yochanan. It does not change. Right? Shane is just the Gaelic equivalent of the name John. So,
That's what it is.
and my dad's name was Mike. So my Hebrew name is Yochanan ben Michael. I'm the son of Michael. Yeah. Yochanan, the son of Michael.
Means Shane means a gift from El, and then his middle name is Adam, so he's the first son.
See, I'm Adam. Hardhead rascal. I can't stand it. But anyway, like I said, we work together and we learn and we help each other, you know, and that's the thing. Y'all got to know, do not, and I've told you this 1,000 times and I mean it, do not be afraid to call out, because that's how you get affirmation. If you say something in the vowels parsing isn't correct, that's okay. We make a small correction and then we learn from it. But don't be embarrassed, you know what I mean? Don't be ashamed. Well, I'm not going to say anything because that sounds stupid. Don't do that, because the only person that you're hurting is yourself in that case. So feel free to speak out. You know, if you have a question or whatever, just let's talk and get it out there.
So what, is this how you explain history?
It's yes, but the vowel points would be a little different. Same spelling though.
That's why there's so much confusion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, and there's a lot of them wanting to take the divinity away from him and just turn him into a man. My friends, my Jewish friends that I had, I asked Mary, my friend Troy, I asked his mother, I asked her about Yahushua. Now at the time I didn't know that name, but I knew the one with the J. And I asked her, I said, well, what about him? I said, you guys don't believe in him, right? And she said, well, it's not that we don't believe that he existed. She said, we believe he existed. We believe he was a good man. We believe he was a prophet. You know, but we don't think that he was the Messiah. And again, being a kid at the time, I didn't think to ask her anything else past that. I just kind of wanted to know where they stood on it, you know? And so it was the explanation was given that, oh yeah, we believe he was alive. We believe he lived. We believe he was a prophet. We believe he was a good guy, but we just don't believe that he was the Messiah. And I was like, okay. But again, being a kid, not thinking too much about it, I was just like, all right, whatever, you know what I mean? And, you know, so like I said, it's not like he's unknown to them. It's just that they don't accept his divinity. Which I don't know how they couldn't because of all the miracles and everything. That's what he told you. He said, if you don't believe me for my words, believe me for the miracle's sake, you know? But they didn't do that either. So anyway, that's where we're going to end it today.